Long before the first temple was built, and before any names were carved into stone, there was a realm that existed beyond the reach of mortal prayer. It was a secret crossroads, a hidden place where gods who were forgotten and distant would gather. They called it Ethernox, the hall beyond the sky. This was a place of immense power and quiet wisdom. The gods didn't assemble for worship or conquest. They were summoned only when the world itself trembled with imbalance. Imagine a time when storms raged without a drop of rain, when fires burned brightly but gave off no warmth. In these moments of cosmic crises, the other deities were called. From the sprawling eastern deserts, the first to arrive was Anu, the ancient lord of the heavens. His crown wasn't made of gold or jewels, but forged from starlight older than time itself. With every step he took, the very air echoed with a sound like thunder, a thunder that existed before the world even had a name for it. His presence was a reminder of the universe's vast, untamed beginnings. Then, from the cold, biting winds of the north, a second figure emerged. This was Hel, a being of profound duality. One half of her was vibrant and living, the other as pale and still as death. She was the ruler of the unseen paths, where souls wander after their final breath. A chilling frost followed in her shadow, but where her living side passed, delicate flowers would miraculously bloom, a testament to the cycle of life and death she embodied. Suddenly, the earth itself would split open, and from the deep, primal forests, Cernunnos would rise. He was the horned guardian, the protector of beasts and the keeper of natural balance. Thick, ancient vines wrapped around his powerful arms, as if the land itself was holding on to him, refusing to let its champion go. He was the raw, untamed spirit of the wild, the heartbeat of the living world. Across the shimmering seas of dawn, a fourth deity sailed. This was Amaterasu, the sun-born queen. Her light was a paradox gentle, yet absolutely unyielding. It was bright enough to banish the deepest darkness, but soft enough to warm the most fragile, newborn thing. She represented hope, clarity, and the promise of a new day. A light that nurtured rather than scorched. The last to arrive was always Thoth, the silent keeper of hidden words. He carried with him ancient tablets, their surfaces inscribed with truths so powerful, so fundamental, that even the other gods feared to read them aloud. He was the god of knowledge, of secrets, and of the cosmic record that held the fate of everything. They gathered in the great hall of Ether. The balance of the world was broken, and the reason was becoming clear. Humanity had started to forget them. Anu, his voice resonating like a distant storm, spoke first. Mortals no longer remember the old paths, he declared, his gaze sweeping over the council. They build their new temples and call only two louder, younger gods. Hel's response was as calm and quiet as falling snow. And in death, they always remember the paths they've forgotten in life. The guardian of the wild knelt and pressed his palm flat against the cold stone floor of the hall. He closed his eyes, listening to the world's pain. The forests shrink, he said, his voice a low growl of sorrow and anger. The animals vanish, the rivers run sick. If this balance breaks completely, it won't matter if you are a god or a mortal and will survive. A heavy silence, as thick and palpable as destiny itself, filled the hall. The gods contemplated the brink upon which the world teetered. Then Thoth, the keeper of truths, finally spoke. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the silence with absolute clarity. The problem is not forgetfulness, he stated, his eyes seeming to hold all the knowledge of the universe. It is pride. Humans have begun to believe they stand alone, that they are the masters of their world, not a part of it. Another silence followed, this one filled with understanding. The diagnosis was correct. It was humanity's hubris that was unraveling the fabric of existence. It was Amaterasu who stepped forward, her brilliant light dimming into a soft, comforting warmth that enveloped them all. Her voice was gentle, but firm. Then we do not punish them for their pride, she said, looking at each of her fellow deities. We remind them. And so, the other deities reached a unanimous decision. They would not unleash floods or plagues. They would not demand sacrifice or tear down the temples of the new gods. They would choose a subtler, more profound path. That very night, Across the entire world, strange and wonderful things began to occur. In a moonlit forest, a hunter who had cornered a magnificent, wounded stag suddenly lowered his bow. He couldn't explain why, but he let the creature go. That night, he dreamed of a majestic figure with horns crowned in moonlight, and he woke with a newfound respect for the life he had almost taken. In a quiet village, a dying elder lay on her bed, but instead of fear, she felt a strange peace. It felt as if a gentle, cold hand was taking hers, guiding her forward on a path that felt not like an end, but a beginning. In a bustling city, a small child, who could barely write her own name, began to scribble symbols she had never been taught. When her parents asked what she was doing, she spoke with a wisdom far beyond her years, talking of the connection between the stars and the sea, the trees and the wind. The next morning, the sun rose differently. It seemed softer, kinder, its light lingering on the world, as if it were watching over it with a gentle, protective gaze. The gods did not return to grand temples or demand worship through fear. They returned to the world in a different way. They returned to stories. They became the quiet whisper of intuition, the inexplicable act of kindness, the sudden flash of inspiration. And though mortals may never speak their ancient names again, the world continues to breathe. The balance holds, not because of grand miracles, but because of small, unseen acts. The other deities remain walking unseen among us, remembered not by worship, but by the quiet, resilient balance of the world itself. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into myth and legend. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tales from the forgotten corners of imagination. See you next time.